Hi folks, this is Steve from the Pistol Place and welcome to this video review of the very wonderful ASG CZ 75. The CZ 75 was produced first in the mid-70s, as you probably guessed by its name, by CZ in what was then Czechoslovakia and what's now the Czech Republic. It was a full-size 9mm semi-automatic handgun with a double-stack magazine. Proved very popular, and there have been a number of variants that have come out since. This is a replica of the very first model of the CZ75, which came out I think in 1977. Let's have a look at the replica. Overall, it's a very nice visual replica. There's a number of details here that I like a lot. The trigger being finished in chrome on the replica and the outer barrel finished in polished alloy is very accurate to the original. The slightly oddly shaped trigger guard is a kind of oblong shape. Again, that's exactly as it is on the original. The slide on many CZ pistols, but starting with CZ75, is slightly different to most semi-auto pistols because the slide runs inside the frame rails, and that means that the slide is comparatively shallow compared to conventional semi-automatics where the slide runs outside the frame rails. One small issue that produces is that the slide serrations, the part that you grip at the back here, is quite small, so you do have to grip it quite firmly to rack the pistol, and it does have a fairly strong return spring. All the controls from the original are replicated and they work exactly as they do on the original. Even some quite tiny details. The hammer pin has a retaining peg. You can see it's a silver peg there that comes down from the top of the frame and holds the hammer pin in place. Even that's been replicated. Does that make any difference to you when you're shooting the pistol? Absolutely not, but I like that level of detail, and it suggests that people producing the replica have really thought about how to make it look as much like the original as possible. One of the other features of the CZ75 was it was designed to be carried cocked and locked, in other words with a hammer back with the safety applied. Now that means that it doesn't have a decocker as part of the safety device, so it has to be manually decocked, and on the CZ75 there is a half cock position on the hammer, so you can go from full cock and decock it to half cock, which is safer than dropping the hammer all the way. And I was delighted to see that this replica does exactly that. If the hammer is at full cock, which it is there, if you pull the trigger, you can move it to the half cock position. When it's in the half cock position, it'll only fire in double action. Obviously, if the hammer is at full cock position, it'll fire in single action. One of the things I do like about this replica is it has a true single action trigger. When the hammer is at full cock, the only thing that the trigger is doing is releasing the hammer. There is a little bit of free play, but once you get past that, it is a short, very light trigger pull. Very nice indeed, and very accurate to the original weapon. On most 4.5mm replicas, the first part of the trigger pull is used to cue up the next BB for shooting, but it isn't done that way here. The blowback action not only cocks the hammer, it cues up the next BB. I like that quite a lot. It is a blowback replica. The slide retracts, goes through a full range of movement, and it locks back on empty. Slide release works just as you'd expect it would. Pistol is not ambidextrous. All the controls are on the left hand side, set up for right hand use, which again is pretty much as you'd expect as a pistol from the 1970s, because obviously nobody was left handed back then. More modern pistols are ambidextrous, this one certainly isn't. Quality of this looks very good indeed. The slide has very little play in it. The action generally feels nice and tight. Everything works the way it should. The safety, again, as on the original, can only be applied when the hammer is at full or half cock position to lock the hammer, and as I said, there is no decocker involved. You can only manually decock to either half cock or to bring the hammer down completely. If the hammer is all the way down, the gun will fire in double action, but it's very stiff. But then you're almost never going to be doing that, so I don't really see that it's an issue. You might possibly be firing double action from a half-cock position, and that's nice and smooth, a little bit heavy, but smooth, but most of the time, because it's blowback, you'd be firing in single action, and the single action trigger is absolutely beautiful. It's as nice as I've come across on almost any replica. The sights are pretty basic. There are no white dots, no aiming aids of any sort, but they're nice and clear, they're nice and easy to use. The pistol can also be field stripped. Not many ASG replicas can, but this one can. You can find more information about that in the written review. CO2 and BBs are held in this magazine. The magazine does have an extended base, I guess, to make it long enough to fit the CO2 inside. I don't particularly like that, although to be fair, it's modelled on an extended size magazine that CZ produced, so it's not completely unrealistic. It would have been nice to see a magazine that stopped at the base of the grip, but I guess it's just not possible if you're going to fit the CO2 inside. Up to 17 BBs are loaded into the front of the magazine. There's a loading port here. The follower isn't lockable, so you actually have to hold it down, but the spring isn't too strong, so it's not too uncomfortable to do that. Loading CO2, you first have to remove the plastic base of the magazine by pressing a button in the bottom, and that exposes the plug for tightening and piercing the CO2. You have to take the plug out completely using the Allen key supplied before the CO2 comes in the bottom. You can't put it in from the side as you can on many of these magazines. And the plastic cap is simply slid back into place once you're ready to shoot. Everything works really nicely. The finish, it's a semi-matte black. It might have been nice to see a more glossy finish, because that would have been more true to the original CZ75. But it seems to be good. It's not really showing any signs of wear, and certainly previous ASG replicas that I've owned seem to have a finish that lasts fairly well. So I'm hoping that this one will be the same. Okay, let's take a quick look at how the ASG CZ75 shoots. Okay, well, hopefully you saw that the shooting there was very good. This is the target I was shooting at there. Hopefully you can see that the grouping, I mean, if you exclude this one flyer, that this group is under 1.5 inches, which is exceptionally good for a BB pistol with smooth bore barrel. I would have to say that it is variable though, and it isn't always as accurate as this. Particularly I found that the first magazine that I tend to shoot in a particular session, the accuracy isn't as good, and it gradually seems to be improved. So you can see, for example, here is another target. In fact, this was the one I shot just before I started filming, and the group is quite a lot bigger. If you exclude the one flyer there, it's probably over 2 inches, the grouping on that one. So it varies. I'm not absolutely sure why it is. I mean, certainly that's really quite outstanding for a BB pistol. That's probably more what you would expect. It would appear that when you first shoot the pistol, when you shoot the first magazine in a particular session, accuracy doesn't seem to be quite as good. I have absolutely no idea why that would be, but it seems to be with I've had that with more than one steel BB shooting pistol. Overall it's good. The blowback is nice. It has strong blowback, it's fairly snappy, it's quite loud. It doesn't use too much CO2, between 50 and 60 shots, which again is probably average for a blowback BB pistol, really isn't that bad. It has really nice ergonomics. It's a very slim pistol. It kind of feels like a cross between a 1911 and a Browning High Power, both of which are very pleasant pistols to handle. It's all metal, the original is all steel, this is all alloy. So it's heavier than polymer flame pistols, and it wasn't until I picked this up that I remembered how much I like metal pistols. They really just feel good. Whether it makes a difference to shooting or not, I don't know. That you're shooting with a heavier pistol certainly feels good. As a shooter, it's enjoyable. It's not the most accurate thing you'll find, and it does vary a little bit in its accuracy, but it's more than enough for, well, not for target shooting. It's a BB pistol. It's not really for that, but for plinking, yeah, it's absolutely great. As I said, not configurable for left-hand operation. I'm afraid you're stuck with using this via right hand or passing it back before we need to release the slide or anything else. But there you go, that's accurate to the original pistol. Overall, this is a really nice replica. Functionally, it's about as close as you can get to a CZ75. Everything works as it does on the original pistol. And it has this true light single action trigger, which makes a huge difference when you're shooting it. I like this one a lot. ASG make a number of replicas of CZ pistols, different kinds. Not all of them function the same as this. Not all of them have true single action triggers. So if you are looking for a CZ pistol, the CZ75, this one, does seem to be different to some of the other ASG replicas, and this one I would really highly recommend. It's as good as something like, for example, a Tafoglio Witness in terms of being a replica, and it's also a satisfying shooter. Overall, yeah, I like this one a lot. If you're bored with Beretta 92s, Colt 1911s, and you want to try something a little bit different, I can highly recommend this one. It seems very nicely put together, nice shooter, finish appears to be fairly thickly applied, and there's certainly no wear on this one so far. Overall, I can't think of any reason why you wouldn't be extremely happy with one of these if you were to add it to your collection. As ever, you can find a full written review on the CZ75 on thepistolplace.com. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the review.